Oh, failure to stop Friday. Guns up, giddy up, everybody. This is Eric Tansey and Deadleg here on the Failure to Stop Podcast Network, the number one place where law enforcement goes to be informed and entertained. We have moved all the news that was on this channel to FAWKES News, and I have to apologize. I have to apologize to you real quick this morning because, one, I'm extremely sick. I am feverish. I'm clammy. I'm sweating. I am wearing a cowboy hat in good spirits, just in the spirit of things. But my wife is sick. My kids are sick. And the guest that we had planned for today reached out to us last minute yesterday evening and canceled. So today's show is going to be a little bit wonky. We do have a good one because I've been wanting to talk about the J6 Rioter, Matthew Huttle, being killed by police, but it's not going to be a traditional breakdown. And I'm on the struggle bus, man. I'm on the struggle bus, but we're going to get a good show out for you regardless. And then also, if you want all of the updated news, and there's so much news, Trump's got to slow it down because breaking headline news is just coming out at a rate that nobody can keep up with, not mainstream media or independent journalism. And so if you want to follow all the breaking news from independent sources, check out FAWKES. It's Fox News on podcast or on YouTube. Right now, hit the subscribe button and the notify bell so that you can be notified about all of our regular breakdowns, which is normally what this show is all about, breaking down cases from a police perspective. Today's show is brought to you by ghostbed.com/Wolfpack. I absolutely soiled my ghost bed last night as I broke my fever. Disgustingly enough, I have no idea how I'm going to get all the sweat out of my bed. I was soaking wet. I've never been so sweaty in my life. It is gross. I have no idea how we're going to clean this up. And now my wife's got it, and she's all sweaty and clammy, and my 10-year-old's got it, and he's all grossed out. I mean, it's going to be a bad weekend here at the Tansey abode. But I am thankful for my ghost bed because at least I sweated in comfort. And then also today's show brought to you by Pig Latin, a seriously funny true story, which is a book that I wrote. And it's hilarious and it's sad and it's a life changer. And right now we're 5 months out from its release. If you would go over and pre-order it now, that would help out greatly to get on the pre-order list. This book is being published through Atrium and Simon Schuster, and it is the biggest release in its genre for fall of 2025. So if you want to be a part of that, the big movement of Pig Latin, go right now to Amazon, Barnes & Noble, Books A Million, whatever, on the computer, and get on the pre-order list for Pig Latin, a seriously funny true story of a former police officer. Again, I think this is a first of its kind book, actually. What is going on?
My speaker's having a seizure.
Having a seizure. I'm about to have a seizure. I left the park yesterday with my kids. They had a photo shoot yesterday, and I was already starting to feel crappy. This is how fast this sickness hit me. I was already feeling sick, and then about 20 minutes outside of the park, I was shaking so bad, and I was so cold that I felt like I was having a daggone seizure myself. Good morning from Canada. Oh, Jarrett Ballness. I have pissed off some Canadians lately. I don't know. I mentioned on one of the shows, I can't remember if it was Fox or Failure Stop, Jarrett, but I had mentioned that Canadians should want to come over here to the United States. We would love to have you. I think we'd all get along great. I think we would, it would be like Step Brothers, like the movie. We would do all sorts of things together. It'd be weird at first. I said it mainly jokingly, and boy, I got lit up on Instagram. Some guy sent me just this crazy message, lost all of his respect for me for saying that, and blah blah blah, and that I'm just a stereotypical American. I mean, I'm a C- student at best, so I guess you're right. But hey, I appreciate all the live chats out there. Lumber Chef, Nightkin, Bosco Entree, Folk Around and Find Out. Thank you guys for being up in the live chats. Today we're breaking down this J6 case. It's extremely strange, and it gets a little bit stranger. Now, this case right here led me to even crazier stuff. Remember I told you guys that on January 6th, the guy who shot Ashley Babbitt, Officer Bird, he's just an absolute dirtbag of a human being. And I touched on this without saying he was a dirtbag of a human being, but I touched on this because it was all rumor back in the day on our big J6 episode that we did a few years ago. And now it's all come out to light. Actually, Blaze TV did a full breakdown on this guy's career, and it is worse than I even thought. This guy has no business being a cop whatsoever. And he continues to not only be a terrible cop, but just a terrible person in general when it comes to being grateful for things. And so it's so bad that I want to do an entire breakdown. And normally we do case breakdowns where we break down like a shooting. We talk about all sorts of stuff, but sometimes I like to go on the fringe of things. And I think that this case with Bird, who's now a captain, because we all deal with that, the inner house politics. We all have that one guy that you don't know why he's not fired. Why isn't he fired? This guy lied several times. He left his gun for 55 minutes in a bathroom. This guy ran around with his finger on the trigger, pointing his gun at all sorts of people on the floor, on the house floor, before he killed Ashley Babbitt. He got caught lying, and he got caught lying about being at a certain post early on in his career. And when they went back through all the videos, they found that he was sneaking off eating and drinking stuff. He's also filed for bankruptcy many times. But, I mean, they had put it in a request that he be fired and terminated, and he was never terminated. This guy continues to fuck up, and then they promote him to captain. But there's more to that. He wants more money. They gave him tons of money after he shot Ashley Babbitt. He wasn't grateful for it. And then we have another issue. This is out of the Capitol Police, and they're just having such a hard time. By the way, Capitol Police has just had so many suicides in the last couple of years, and I've talked to some Capitol Police officers and kind of what they think is behind a lot of the suicides. It's just the office house politics. It's the stress of the politics of the job that have their suicide rate so high. But a Massachusetts man was found this week to be carrying a gun after attending a tour of the U.S. Capitol. There was a national warning, by the way, that this guy was coming. And not only was that national warning correct, in that the guy did show up, but he also made it past security with a gun. And the security was a DEI hire. I don't want to go too far into it, but there was LGBTQ-ness involved in it. And the rumor is, it's a rumor speculation. I really don't like rumors and speculations, but the sources that I get it from are, pretty accurate. It was a female cop that missed the gun on the way in. And yeah, I'll leave it at that. I'll leave it as a DII hire. I don't like to ruin anybody over rumors. I definitely wouldn't want to out a cop when I don't know the entire story. But what I do know is that a gun was missed, and a gun was made. A gun was missed, and this guy got into. Let's see here. I'll just read this. Authorities in Washington were alerted by police in Carlisle, Massachusetts, on Monday that a man with a gun who had expressed suicidal ideations on social media was headed to Washington. The U.S. Secret Service and Washington, D.C. Metropolitan Police found the man in a Washington hotel early Tuesday morning and interviewed him. Sources said they searched for a gun and found no weapon, and no further action was taken at the time. They said later that day, the man went through a Capitol Police magnetometer screening and entered the Capitol Visitor Center. The alarm sounded, and an officer performed a secondary hand search, and the man was let into the building with the gun in his waistband. We're not talking about a gun in a hair wig or gun underneath an awesome cowboy hat. We're talking about a gun where most guys carry a gun in their waistband. So the metal detector goes off, and this searches him and misses this gun and makes it on the Capitol floor. But they got to keep that under. They're going to keep it under wraps because of everything else about this cop. Now, if this would have been any other cop, I imagine we would have gotten a lot more information about it. I don't know. Maybe not. But it really made me angry this morning because we're seeing more and more of this. We have this flight that's come out. And I wasn't going to touch on the flight, on the plane crash today because we're covering it on Fox News. But Deadleg, my producer, big into aviation, give us a quick synopsis on what you have real quick before we get into Matthew Huttle being killed by police.
So the things that haven't come out yet, the black box hasn't come out. They haven't done the investigation to find out who was working in ATC, how many people were there, were they understaffed, were they understaffed, were they didn't have training, all that. So there's a lot of that stuff we don't know about, but we do know it was a white top helicopter, part of the HMX crew. And what they do is they fly around dignitaries and stuff around DC all the time. And the helicopters have a specific route that they fly. It's on the east side of the river. When they're coming down from north to south, on the north side of it's at Route 1. Right at this transition point, it transitions and it becomes Route 4. It's the same route. They're supposed to stay east of the river and below 200 feet. Now, what the data that's come out that I've seen, it shows that between the length of the airport, the helicopter wasn't as far east as it should have been, and it also increased its altitude from 200 feet at what it had been at to 350 feet at the point of impact. So also at the same time, behind this plane was also 3 other planes stacked in to land. There were 2 planes getting the runways, getting ready to take off. It was an extremely, extremely busy night. When you have all of that, plus this helicopters in airspace like that, plus you have all of the, because it's different than like New York. New York, their flight restrictions you're different because you get the buildings and stuff, but the flight restrictions you have in DC are because it's DC. You got the Capitol, you got the White House, you got the Pentagon, you got Congress, you got all of that stuff there. And if you deviate off course just a little bit, you get to call the FAA and have an investigation and explain, hey, why were you 250 feet outside of your supposed zone where you're supposed to be? The other thing is the plane right before it was landing, it diverted from the runway that was set up for to a separate runway that kind of put it in the path of the helicopter. On the ATC, people are trying to put the ATC under the bus. Listening to the ATC, from the ATC handoff, it sounds like the helicopter crew will be at fault, because when the helicopter crew requested visual separation, ATC said, okay, you maintain visual separation. At that point, it is on the helicopter crew to maintain separation from everything else in the airspace. And they didn't do that. And unfortunately, a bunch of people died. Yeah. I would say, like, the backside of it, I was talking with my wife, and this sounds bad, but also that night there were other planes in the air that had way more people on them than just this smaller jet. So if an accident is going to happen, I would say I would want to have the casualty list as small as possible. And this is a helicopter with a smaller plane. Yes, there's a lot of people lost their lives, and I don't want to belittle that tragedy, but it could have been a lot worse. And then going forward, we can have new regulations or follow new regulations or follow other things to be able to make sure this doesn't happen again.
Yeah, it's going to be interesting to see what's coming out. I know that the DEI stuff is, by Trump, but it's there for a reason. And I think it's the frustration because, like I said, what's going on with the gun being getting into the Capitol, that was from a DEI hire. And somebody who shouldn't be working up there, frankly. But that information hasn't come out yet, and it really can't come out. And I'm not the one that's able to put it out. And I think that's frustrating too. And I think there's some more stuff that's going on with the aircraft too, that's got going on. And, for people who think that that's a cheap way out to talk about DEI and diversity. I was able to talk to a pilot that flies out there for the military that's stationed there. And when I asked, what's up with this DEI stuff? And he says, well, it's been one of our biggest complaints. And when we had the switch over, a lot of our pilots have said, like, we spend more time talking about diversity hires and how we're supposed to treat other people and all this other stuff than we even get briefed on drones, or we get briefed on our actual enemies. He's like, we're constantly having to come in every single day for, whether it be suicide or trans this or gay that or sexual harassment this or rape that. And he said, but we only get briefed on enemy stuff or stuff that's actually pertinent to the job of protecting the Capitol, maybe once a month. And so I think that there's been a lot of chatter in the new administration, and that's why it's come out so quickly. I don't like to politicize, the fatalities. I saw Nancy Kerrigan, was really hurt by this, and she had a lot of people that she was close to. All right, I want to get into the J6 rider Matthew Huttle being killed by the police. This is a tragic story, and I don't know. It's ripe for conspiracy theory, but I also, once you know the totality of Matthew Huttle, I don't think we are. Once you know who Matthew Huttle is, the conspiracy theory stuff kind of is diminished. I won't say it's completely out. It's out of the realm of things, but it's definitely not. It's definitely not at the forefront. And once you know the history of Matthew Huttle, so I want to talk about Matthew Huttle, but first I want to talk again. We did this show years ago on January 6th. And I had done so much research, and I had talked to Capitol police officers, and I had talked to Metro PD, and I had talked to National Guardsmen. I really prepared for that show a few years ago, and all the information I put out on the show is now coming out as public record. I knew then that it was that was the story because I believe the sources, and I think that it's just, I say it to show how far we've come and how independent journalism plays out, that we're able to put out this information way before mainstream media gets around to it, or because they don't want to get around to it. But this was the Senate floor hearing yesterday. Here we go. Let me just play this for you. And it's going to tie in. It's all the things that we talked about. Now, the Sergeant at Arms answers directly to Nancy Pelosi and Chuck Schumer. We covered that on the show. It's been like that since the Civil War. The Speaker of the House and the Sergeant of Arms, that is, since the Civil War, passed down to those two ranks, which would have been Chuck Schumer and Nancy Pelosi at the time. And I showed you guys the memos that were sent up to Nancy Pelosi requesting the National Guard, requesting additional officers, requesting Metro PD, and those were denied. And I said 2 years ago or 3 years ago, whenever that show came out, that I said, if I leave M&Ms on the table and I tell my kids I'm going to go mow the yard, but don't you dare open up those M&Ms. I don't know how many M&Ms are in a bag. And the bag, well, how about this? I leave an open bag of M&Ms and I say, I don't know how many M&Ms are in that bag, but when I come back, you better not have eaten any M&Ms. But there's no way for me to know that there'd be an M&M missing because I didn't count the M&Ms, but I'm going outside to mow my yard. But please don't take any M&Ms. But again, remember, I won't know if you did or you didn't. And I leave. It's like I'm telling my kids to take an M&M out of the bag. That's what J6 was for me. That's after all of the evidence, that's what I saw happen. Nancy Pelosi and Chuck Schumer and everybody else in that party knew that there were going to be 250,000 plus people, pro-Trump supporters, and that anytime you get a crowd that size, and I said it then and I'll say it again now because I stand by it, is that I am surprised it didn't get any worse. Well, how can you say that, Eric? Well, if you look at the totality of the events, that many people and the injuries that were that day, it was very minimal compared to riots that we have seen in the past, and destruction and violence. Remember how many people died during the BLM riots, and those riots were not nearly as big as the J6 protest or anything like that. So, in its totality, I didn't see it being nearly as bad as it could be. But it doesn't matter if you have a large crowd and they're not supervised, there's always going to be agitators in the crowd. I like to tell a story. When I was in high school, we had a bomb threat and they put everybody outside for the bomb threat. We all had to go to the football fields, and then they closed us in the fence of the football fields, and students began to shake the fence. And I still to this day don't know why, but everybody started shaking the fence. And everybody wanted to get on shaking the fence. And I ran up and I climbed up on that fence and I started shaking it too, but I was on the fence. And I don't know why we ruined this fence. It was, over 100 yards of fence, and the fence, and they couldn't stop. They couldn't stop the students. Now, of course, we all got in trouble because of pictures, and of course the teacher saw who it was, and I got in trouble, and they asked, why were you doing that? Why did you feel the need? And I never had an answer. I was a 15-year-old boy and saw everybody else shaking the fence, and I thought it would be a lot of fun. And so that happens when you have any kind of a large crowd. People, it's our animal instinct, I guess. But I want to play this for you just because it shows you what we were talking about years ago. and how it kind of led. And this is why the pardons happened, because if you look at this case, if you look at the J6 case, it was allowed to happen. Therefore, everything happened. It's like if you give somebody a whole bunch of alcohol and you get them drunk, and then you give them no other option but to drive home drunk, is it their fault? Of course, that's a terrible analogy there. But like if law enforcement, right? Like if law enforcement says you have to leave this premise right now and you're super drunk, that's a better analogy. Let me go with that one before you guys freak out on me. Again, I'm sick. I have like a fever right now. If you're hammered drunk,
it's hard to make it sound not like a setup without using the word setup.
Yes. It's like if you're super drunk and I'm like, you can't be here. And then you're like, well, where do I go? And you're like, I don't know, but you can't be here. And you're hammered drunk. And then you walk away and they get you for drunk and disorderly, or you get in your car and you leave and they give you a DUI. And it's like, well, hang on. Like, you told me I had to go and that under no circumstances guys stay here. That's probably my fever talking. So I think that once they saw the evidence of what exactly happened on J6, they had no option but to kind of pardon or dismiss these cases because, like you said, it was a setup. Let me play this clip and then we're going to talk about Matthew Huttle.
What were you doing on that day?
On that day specifically, responding to preparing to mobilize and deploy the National Guard once we got the lawful request from the local governing authority, which was the mayor of D.C. and the Speaker of the House.
Now, how many days in advance were you working to prepare the Department of Defense to help secure the Capitol on January 6th?
Days in advance, Senator. We were in the Oval Office on an unrelated national security matter with the President of the United States, the Secretary of Defense, the Chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff, and myself. And the president authorized up to 20,000 plus National Guardsmen and women to secure any security measures necessary related to the Capitol. So we were moving to the fullest extent of the law before the requisite request came from a local governing authority days ahead of time.
And while you were chief of staff at DOD, how many times did DOD approach Capitol Police and ask if they needed National Guard assistance?
I believe those letters are well documented, numerous instances, and numerous of those instances, those requests were shut down.
Now, am I correct that the Capitol Sergeant at Arms said assistance was unnecessary?
That's correct, Senator.
Who did the Sergeant at Arms report to?
The Speaker of the House.
That would have been Nancy Pelosi at the time. Is that correct?
Yes, Senator.
And would that also be Chuck Schumer, then the Senate Majority Leader?
The Sergeant at Arms, yes, Senator, reports up there.
Did Mayor Bowser, the Democrat elected mayor in D.C., either request or allow National Guard assistance?
She put in writing on the days leading up to January 6th a declination for National Guard additional support. And that letter is available publicly to the world.
So just to speak English for folks at home, a declination meant she said, no, don't send National Guard. Is that right?
Yes, sir.
Let me ask you a simple question, because from the questioning from my Democrat colleagues, they might think otherwise. Do you condemn violence against law enforcement?
All of it.
So, yeah, there you go.
What were you?
Oops, sorry. Several times they requested the National Guard. Several times they requested it. We showed these memos on the show. And again, when you don't have supervision and you have a big, large crowd like that, especially as politically charged and emotionally charged as that crowd was, something is going to happen. And I'm glad it wasn't worse than what it was. So now we have these pardons that came out from Donald Trump. Now, a lot of these guys, a lot of the people that were put in prison for the J6 were completely, their sentences were far beyond what they should have been. And then in other cases where you have, like in this case, Dale, Matthew Huttle's uncle Dale tried to stab a cop with the spear end of a American flag, and his sentence wasn't really that. Wasn't that serious, but then you have a Massachusetts guy who did like 6 months, and for going through the gate and helping a police officer up. A police officer had fallen. A lot of you guys have seen that video, but I mean, he was sentenced to like, I think Oh, I don't remember what it was. Was it 11 years that he was going to serve for that assault on that police officer? I can't remember what it was. You can look it up for me. But he was pardoned, of course, gets his second look at life on that. And that was, that was overreaching. That wasn't an assault on law enforcement officer. I too condone any assaults on law enforcement officers. You're going to pay the price. It's, that officer's there to do a job. And, they have to do that job. And if you're going to assault that police officer, whether you feel it's the right thing to do or it's not, you're going to pay a price for it. And a lot of these guys did. So I don't condone any of the violence, but I'm glad that there wasn't as much violence again as there could have been. So now Matthew Huttle, who was just killed 3 days ago by a police officer in Indiana, we have almost zero information, and I've seen the conspiracy theories running wild on this case, and so I had to get into it because I too like to go down the conspiracy theory rabbit holes. But learning more about Matthew Huttle, I don't think we have enough for a conspiracy theory. Matthew Huttle might not be the best example. He might not be the guy. He's kind of like the George Floyd of this case. I don't know if I want him to be the center of my movement because of, his past and kind of where he's at now. Now, I do think it's strange. That we're not giving a lot of information about this case. We're going to talk about that too. But again, once that information comes out, I'm more confident now that it will show that the police probably acted appropriately in this case. But we'll see, because it hasn't come out yet. Today's show is brought to you by ghostbed.com. Sleep so good it's scary. Right now, 40% off across the board. I cannot live without my ghost bed or my ghost bed pillow. I sleep outside of the house more. I sleep inside the house, completely traveling all the time. Be in Michigan next week, be up in Western North Carolina the week after that. And I'll be traveling with my trusty ghost bed and my ghost bed pillow. Also training 5 and 6 days a week, doing jujitsu and Muay Thai. That massage topper from Ghost Bed is what keeps me going week after week. It's how I show up. If I didn't have the massage topper, I don't know how I would be training that much at 40 years old. So really like the massage topper. Right now, I think it's 50% off. For the massage topper, head over to ghostbed.com. Get your sleep so good it's scary. Valentine's Day is right around the corner. That is the gift that keeps on giving and giving and giving. And I'm not talking about an STD. I'm talking about the gift of a good night's sleep. We also have Factor Meals, factormeals.com/Wolfpack50, or go to factor75.com. Use the promo code Wolfpack50. Meal planning to the next level. Look, you don't have time to be driving all the way to the store, picking out all your menu items, cooking it up, separating it all, putting it in the refrigerator, and then having to figure out how you're going to heat it up for later, keep everybody's paws off of it. With Factor Meals, you can go online, choose from their lots of variety options, from their chef prepared, fresh, and never frozen meals delivered right to your door. They're delivered over Nordic ice in this little cooler. It's awesome. They're wonderful meals. They are the best. They taste incredible. I love them. You can do protein heavy, calorie conscious. You're trying to get in shape for the new year. Like I said, the price is about the same as going grocery shopping when it's all said and done. Head over to Factor Meals, start meal planning today. Do the protein heavy, the calorie conscious, vegan, vegetarian, whatever you want. They've got a meal plan for you. You want to do breakfast and lunch, dinner and breakfast, whatever you need. They will deliver it right to your door every single week. You put them in a microwave, 2 minutes or less, and you've got a awesome meal. So thank you, Factor Meals. Thank you, Ghost Bed. All right, let's dump into it. Let's bring up an article here. Josh, bring this up for me real quick. This is from NBC News. Indiana man pardoned for J6 crimes. Let me stop right there. An Indiana man who was recently pardoned for his participation in the January 6th Capitol riot was shot and killed during a traffic stop by sheriff's deputy on Sunday. Matthew Huttle, 42, was involved in a traffic stop at 4:15 p.m. by the Jasper County Sheriff's Department. A Jasper County Sheriff's deputy authority said in a news release that it alleged that Huttle resisted arrest and was found to have a firearm on him. Now, I think that's very interesting wording. It is alleged that Huttle resisted arrest and was found to have a firearm on him. In a lot of the cases that we cover on here, they're very quick to say that they had a firearm. again, this is kind of lawyer talk. So did he have a firearm on him, or was he resisting with the firearm? We don't know that yet. We don't have that. We don't have the answer to that. But I would have to believe that he probably used the gun or went for the gun, and that's why the police officer shot him. An altercation took place between the suspect and the officer, which resulted in the officer firing his weapon and fatally wounding the suspect. The release said Sheriff Patrick Williamson requested an investigation by the Indiana State Police. The deputy was placed on paid administrative leave. And that's all we really have. That's all we really know about the shooting. They didn't really go, they wouldn't tell us anything else. There's no dash cam footage yet. There's no, and again, we're 3 days into this and we don't have a timeline of the events. I had to do some real deep diving onto who Matthew Huttle was. The more I dug on Matthew Huttle, the less impressed I was by him. Matt has, I know you don't know, Josh. I know you don't know. And I don't want you to type this in. I want you to guess. I'm not going to hold this on you for fact checking. How many DUIs would you think that Matthew Huttle has?
I'm going to guess 2.
Okay. In the live chats, I want to know, let's see who can get the closest. Who knows how many DUIs without Googling it? Take your best shot guess. Tactical Dude says 6. Naichkin says 8. Anybody else want to guess? Anybody else want to guess on how many DUIs this guy has? Nobody's got it right yet. Huh?
I said we are a live show.
Yes, we are a live show. Nope, it is not 3. It is not 2. It is not 9. It is not 8. It is not 5. It is not 6. It is not 37. However, you are close. It is not 13.
Well, 37 is close.
37 is close. Only that you're one number off. No, he has 7. He has 7 DUIs. So take out the 3 and the 7. But I mean, 7 DUIs is like 37 DUIs in my mind because I have 0. Bosco Audrey says 36.
One off
from Forever Road Podcast. Tyler S says 69. No, it was 7. 7 DUIs, man. 7. How are you still able to exist with 7 DUIs? Now, Matt Huttle, after his 7 DUIs, the reason why he was at the J6 festivities was because his Uncle Dale is too blind to drive, and his Uncle Dale, who's really into politics, wanted to go to the J6 festivities, and he asked Matt Huttle to drive. Now, Dale's brother, Matt's dad, happens to be a retired deputy as well. Also a canine handler in the Air Force before this. Received Officer of the Year, had a big case with some motorcycle gangs, was shot in the leg in 1988 while serving a drug warrant. So, his dad is a hero. Mother passed away. Matt was diagnosed with cirrhosis of the liver in 2019. I believe it was 2019.
I heard alcohol is good for that.
Yes. So now, and this is coming from the dailybeast.com, and offering some background, the memorandum described Huttle as an itinerant journeyman carpenter who had a long struggle with alcoholism. He drank between 12 and 18 beers a day for 15 years. Now, my grandfather probably drank a similar amount, but I just can't imagine 12 to 18 beers a day. Like, you have to know while you're drinking 18 beers that that's not good for you. You know what I mean?
At what point do you look over at the 12 pack that you just crushed the day before, and you have the 12 pack that you're about to crush for today, and you go, maybe that's a problem? Maybe the part where you have to go to the grocery store so much because you're out of alcohol, or you buy alcohol in the pallet because that's how you get it from Costco. You buy it in the pallet form. Like, here's a question I have. So the blind guy is going to ask the guy with 7 DUIs to drive him across country. Does he have a license?
I mean, so there's not, again, there's no information about this guy yet. And so, no, I mean, but I can't imagine that you could have a license and have 7 DUIs.
Well, because here's what the things, like, why the conspiracies, like, what why they start, how they start, and where they start, and how they get out of control when you don't release information. This happened 4 days ago. You know
Right.
that there was a reason for the traffic stop. That happened. You know, a traffic stop happened. Like, you know, parts of this case that you can release. Not only that, if it's an ongoing investigation, just say it's an ongoing investigation, but all of the other times that you have had an officer involved in a shooting or you had something else come up, because I looked up this sheriff's department and they've had 4 months ago, they had another one where another situation where they had someone in their custody die. And that body camera's out. So why not release this?
Right.
Because the other side of the coin is, why not release it? That's because it's bad. That's why. And he didn't have the gun on him and it's a conspiracy and they just shot. Well, that's where the conspiracy goes.
Right.
It's not because we have to go through our proper channels or we have to make sure that anything that's in there that needs to be redacted.
3 days
redacted.
is pretty quick. You know, 3 days is pretty quick now. And if they have no pressure to release it early, they're not going to. So some people will say, well, like, well, you know, why some of these other cases? Well, you know, when it's a minority or, you know, Ben Crump or somebody gets involved, these departments are more likely to release that information because they are being pressured to release it. If nobody's pressuring them to release the information, they're not going to just willingly release the information. It's not until somebody is making a stink. And, you know, a lot of these places don't want to have their cities or their towns burned down. I like all the Reddit threads, everything was talking about how this guy had a lawsuit going. I found no records of that. As a matter of fact, the only thing I really found was that he had extreme remorse. More remorse than most that I've seen. I actually watched an interview today with a Christian couple. I label them as Christian couples because they label themselves as that the entire interview. But it was like, you know, they talk about it being a calling from God and they would do it again, yada, yada, yada. And a lot of the interviews that I watched this morning, a lot of J6ers didn't show any remorse. They said that they would do it again. They felt it was their patriotic duty or is their religious duty to stand up to what they saw as tyranny and stopping the steal. And so, but with Matt Huttle, his statements were extremely apologetic and that he wouldn't do it again. Now, Dale, on the other hand, and again, Dale is going to be Donald's brother. Donald is Matt's dad. He's the kind of law enforcement hero in this story, retired. But here we go. This is Dale right here. I have him circled for you. He is plunging the spear end of a stick into a police officer. You know what I mean? And I have a problem with that because, you know, what if that went in and like ruptured his spleen? Or, I mean, that can kill you. And I don't think somebody like that should be pardoned. That's why I don't like the political tit for tat that's going on right now, because anybody that did that to police officers should not be pardoned. I understand, though, that the reason why the pardoning happened is because none of this would have happened going back had Nancy Pelosi and Chuck Schumer not allowed it or actually created a environment to which it could happen. Let me go back to Matthew Huttle, though. Matthew, according to the memorandum, Matthew Huttle stopped drinking in 2019 after being diagnosed with severe liver cirrhosis. His own mother, Lynn Huttle, died in January of 2023. She had been a first grade teacher for 34 years. Lynn enjoyed traveling, being artistic, reading, blah, blah, blah. His son's mother, I believe, died of a fentanyl overdose. Let me read this. People who knew Matt say he was charming and intelligent when he was sober and a mess when he was not. He was shot in the back of the knee in 2015 for reasons that are unclear. He was attacked with a hammer and baseball bat by his mother's boyfriend in 2018. The son's mother subsequently died of a fentanyl overdose. So, you know, when you start looking at the life of Matthew Huttle, it is a life of chaos and of being in the wrong place at the wrong time over and over again. And at some point, you're no longer guilty by association. You're guilty because you make terrible decisions over and over and over again. So I'm more willing to bet in this case that he made, one would have to say, was he drunk when he got pulled over? We don't know because they haven't released that yet, which again, would be something that they would know by now. Did he go for the firearm? And we're gonna keep on this. And if you follow Failure to Stop, I will post any article that comes up on Instagram of what we can learn from this. But I wanted to cover this because I want to dispel any of the conspiracy theories before you start hating police and saying this was an inside job and that this guy knew something and what are the odds? Nah, I don't think so. I don't think this is the guy that they need to worry about killing to hide something, or this is the kind of guy that's not doing a lawsuit. This is an alcoholic, white trash.
You mean to tell me that someone who has been drinking for 15 years and then drove his blind uncle to DC so he could poke someone in the stomach with a spear? I mean, that's not a stand-up person for society.
Right. Yep.
But like you said, I don't think there's any conspiracy here. I think that one, this agency sounds like where they're at in Indiana sounds like they're pretty busy. Sounds like, I mean, if the girl or the baby mama's dying of fentanyl and that, got all the other stuff going on out there, it sounds like it's not a great situation, but it's definitely, I don't think it's a conspiracy. We'll follow up on it. And when the body camera comes out, or if the body camera comes out, because here's the other thing about body camera, just not to get too far off of the tangent. For the last 10 years that we've been beating on trying to get agencies to have body cameras and dash cameras and all this stuff, that all cost money. And then on the backside of it, we just defunded everything. So a lot of these places, some of these places don't have body cameras. Right. A lot of times that we get requested to do cases or can you pull this or something? Well, we need to do a breakdown. Well, we don't have anything to break down. There's no body cam. We can go over what's been presented in court, but that's been presented in court. So there may not even be body camera footage out of this. Because the other thing is maybe this was it was quick. Because how many times have we watched body cam where the car stopped and before the officer can put his patrol car in the park, the suspect's getting out and starting to lay rounds down range. Yeah. So I don't think it's I am right now. My gut feeling is
less likely, but I wanted to cover it because of course my brain went there first, and I went down this rabbit hole. So I thought I should share the rabbit hole with you guys, and that because our special guest canceled on us last second, and I am dying of sickness. So Tyler S says YouTube would not let me write Pig Latin. YouTube won't let me write a lot of things on here, guys. I try to respond to you guys in tabs, and it says it looks like spam, and I'm like, I'm the owner of the channel. Yeah. How am I spamming anything? Do something nice for somebody this weekend. YouTube reject your comments usually means you think it's spam. Yeah. That's crazy. Guys, so here it is with Pig Latin. We're done with the show today. If you're hanging around the chats, I'll address the chats for just a minute here. Head over to Fox News, FAWKS News, leave a 5-star rating review over there. And man, that show is doing so well. It's doing so good, and we're all having so much fun. John's putting out great content. Josh, myself, Jason Kiefer. We've really got that locked down, and those shows are really, really good. So if you want really good quality news, that show's growing rapidly on podcast audio and actually on YouTube. Go over there and subscribe and be a part of the Fockers, as we call it. But Pig Latin, a seriously funny true story. We are they're in the printing process now. And the more books that we sell on the pre-sale, the more books that they will print to put in Targets and Hudson's all across the United States. We really want to make this. I mean, this book is a life-changing book for a lot of people. Everybody that's read it so far has come back and said, like, literally, it's a life-changing book. It's funny. It's sad. It completely changes your perspective on office house politics. And everybody kind of likes the chapter of Thirsty Lieutenants. And, I'm so glad that people are liking that chapter, the reviewers. And because I spent almost about a year writing that chapter because I had to make that chapter perfect. Is how do you make office house politics entertaining and truthful, and how do you paint that picture correctly? And I'm so glad that these retired police officers and current police officers are saying, like, dude, I love that chapter because it was so spot on. It was just like, I was like, that's my department. That's us. That's like, he's like, it's funny, but at the same time, it's like it's kind of sad. So, we worked really hard on that. I think a lot of people hear that there's office house politics, but they don't know what that really means. And so that's one of my favorite chapters of the book. Of course, there's some sad stories in there, some funny stories. Failure to Stop says, come on, was cops looking for one of these guys? I don't know what that means. Maybe you've had 12 to 18 beers like Matt. Just rewrite it. Let me reread it, Shagwell. Failure to Stop, come on, period, maybe. Was the cop looking for one of these guys?
Do you need medical attention?
No, I mean, if that's what you're asking, I don't know. Why would cops have so much to do? Why would a cop care about a pardon J6? It's more or less that if this guy's got seven DUIs, it's most likely that he was probably on his 8th and not going back. I mean, that would be my guess. My brother was killed by Delta County Sheriff's Office August 17, 2002. I'm sorry to hear that. But I don't know what that has to do with January 6th. He was pardon J6 pardon? Not in 2002. You mean 2022? Oh, God. Slow down. Type it all out for me so I can understand it. I'm guessing you meant 2022 if he's pardoned by January. No, because nobody was pardoned in 2022.
Yeah.
I think we're talking about two different stories, I guess.
Yeah. So I have a question. Go back to the book. If you were to take an episode or take a chapter out of the book and turn it into a TV show or TV episode, which one do you think would be the best one?
Hi there. Do you know if he was under the influence of alcohol? Thanks. Yona says, I'm going to answer you in just a second.
Okay.
Yona says, hi there. Do you know if he was under the influence of alcohol? No, I don't know. If I had to guess, if I was a betting man, and I'm not, but I'm wearing my betting man's cowboy hat right now. If I was a betting man, I would say there's a good possibility. I mean, if the guy's got 7 DUIs, cirrhosis of the liver, and has a history of drinking 12 to 18 beers a day, I mean, it's likely, but we don't know. They haven't released that yet. And again, we're 4 days out of this shooting, and they should put all of this out. I'm not sure why they haven't put this out. It is strange that they haven't put it out. Again, Indiana might be they might not be getting any heat, so they might not have any pressure to put this information out. There might not be anybody asking for it. I mean, mainstream media only covered it for a few hours, made it headline news for only a few hours, and it disappeared rather quickly. And they just kind of left it up to Reddit, Redditors to run wild with conspiracy theories. And again, I wanted to go down the conspiracy rabbit hole. I'm like, oh, J6er shot by police, was he suing them? And then I look at his life, as we talked about today on today's show, and it's just kind of like, I don't know. I mean, this guy just seems like he has a history of making really bad decisions. So he probably more likely than not made another bad decision, which resulted tragically in his life. And, I feel bad for the dad too. Donald, Sergeant Donald, I think he was a sergeant, retired, but I preach that on this show all the time too. It's like, when you are so invested in the job and you're so invested in being a police officer, a lot of times cops' family lives suffer. And we don't, and that was, that's why I run the Be Feral vlog. And that's why, you follow the Tansey fam, my family account, and my kids, and we homeschool and unschool, and all, my kids are more famous than I am at this point. But I mean, that's why, because I spend so much time trying to be a good father, because, when I was going hard in the job, if you know my story, I learned very quickly that I was giving more to being a police officer than I was to my own family, and it wreaked havoc. You think you're doing the right thing. You think you're doing a noble cause. Preachers suffer the same thing, right? Preachers spend so much time helping their flock that they forget to help their own corral. And that's the cowboy hat coming out. Shagwell says, thank you. He came back from Desert Storm, USS Forrestal aircraft carrier Gulf War. Thank you. Please watch the video. James Nolan Walker, just saying, cops can be biased. Yeah, you're right. Cops can be biased. No doubt in that. I mean, I cover the Daniel Holtzclaw case. That is a great case that shows you cops' biases. And yeah, the cops can be absolutely biased. I don't give a blanket. They're bad teachers, they're bad cops, and they're bad doctors. That is what it is. Tactical Dude says, I'm sure DUIs aren't the only thing he's done wrong. It's just what he got caught for. I mean, that's a great point too, right? Because they say for every one DUI, somebody probably drank 20 to 30 times before ever getting caught. he probably drinks and drives every single day of his life, especially if he's drinking 18 to 20 or 12 to 18 beers a day, 20 beers a day. You know, he probably, those are just the 7 times he did get caught. But yeah, I mean, if you're getting shot in the back of the leg for unknown reasons or unclear reasons at your home, yeah, you're probably mixed up in some weird shit. You know, if your brother's boyfriend's sister, whatever it was, that's beating you with assaulting you with a bedpost or whatever it was. I mean, you know how many times I've been assaulted with a bedpost on the civilian side of life? 0. You know how many times I've been shot as a civilian? 0. You know what I mean? Like, I mean, this guy has a lot of misfortunate accidents. At some point, you know, when is he gonna? Well, obviously he can't take responsibility for that anymore because it's too late. He passed. But I do feel bad. You know, I do feel bad for Donald. You know, his legacy that he left behind. And that's what I'm saying. Like, do you think Sergeant Donald will be remembered for being this great sergeant? Do you think that's what Sergeant Donald's going to take to his dying dead? Or is it what he's going to take is that my son got killed by a cop after getting 7 DUIs? You know what I mean? What's more important to you? You know, it's more important to me that I give up some of the things that I want to do in my life and my career. And I don't push as hard on some things as I want because I would rather my kids be good to go and my wife be good. I'd rather die and be known as a great husband and a great father. You know, I might not be rich, might not have all the things, but you know, I have an undying love for my wife and my children, and that we were always close. And that's my big goal, man. It's like, you know, can I make it to 75, 80 years old and my kids are still with me all the time? You know, are they still coming by the house? Are they still calling me to check on me? You know, are they still in a group text together if they're spread across the country? You know, that's kind of what I'm going for. But at the end of the day, guys, sad story. If you'll follow Failure to Stop on Instagram and Facebook I will post any articles, updates. And if Yana or Shagwell, you're interested in the news, we do a news show multiple days a week. It's called Fox News, FAWKES, Fox News. You can follow that on podcast or on YouTube if you'd like. And we do news updates almost daily from an independent journalist side. We do our own journalism there, and we try to give you the totality and not just the emotions behind everything. So we cover a little bit of sports and mostly politics on that show. And then our society and culture show that we bring on this channel by Beth and Greg, that is called The Bar is Open with Beth and Greg, and that's all your fun news, your TMZ style stuff. The Bar is Open with Beth and Greg. Good show. That's a new one too. So go out there and follow those guys. And yeah, appreciate it. I'm sorry that I was sick, guys. I'm sorry our guest wasn't here today. And I'm sorry this wasn't a breakdown like we normally do. But I appreciate you guys being here. Everybody who's bought the book Pig Latin, you are so special. And I thank you more than you'll ever know. This has been just a hell of a project. 4 years in the making, 5 years in the making. Not including the 8 years of experience to write the book. And so, man, everybody that buys it, you have a special piece of my heart. So thank you guys. Until next time, guns up and giddy up. Take us out of here, Josh.
See you.